The first time I was aware of colorism, I didn't even know that it was a form of discrimination. My sister is of a darker complexion, so she has often been at the end of some really hurtful remarks. She will often be told that she's a bit too dark. Remarks such as, "You've really gone too dark for your own good." Things like that. That was awful. I myself eventually had my own run-ins with colorism. Now, I was on set. I was filming, and there was a fellow actor who was exposed to the sun for quite a bit. And one of the co-actors in the scene decided to, she didn't mean anything by it, but what she said directly was that, you're really very dark. In the past, I would have laughed along because I thought like, hey, yeah, I'm sure that's something to laugh at, right? But after reading, about colorism, after being exposed to, about the whole issue, and after, kickstarting this campaign that we're on right now, it opened my eyes. There's so much that we have to work on as a society here, and especially in Singapore. The amazing thing about being a part of this campaign is that it enlightened me as to how we should all be proud of the color of our skin. There is no such thing as the right color. Colorism is misguided.
The first time I was aware of colorism was, I think, in secondary school, when I started to realize that I was really tan and that I was treated a bit differently until they realized that I was Chinese. They see the color of the skin before they judge someone, so yeah. Like, especially from your own Chinese relatives, and they're like, "Oh, you're very tan for a Chinese, I see." I was like, and they're like, why is that? And I'm like, my mind's like, there's no why is that, I'm born like that. And then they're like, oh, fair skin, fair skin is like better. Like on social media, when they put like adverts or whatnot, it's usually of a fairer skin. I think it's a stereotype that they feel like, fair skin, it's like more appealing, it's more clean, and they don't really show a lot of tan skin. I feel like representation is very important, but they don't really use that, so a lot of people still feel like fair skin is the way to go. All the adverts that you see, that shampoo or body or face, you will never see a tan skin person. Like, try and find me one. Really cannot. Yeah, only after I got to realize that, like, hey, these representations are not exactly like the best, and like, you are who you are. Because you're born this way, you cannot change your color. So I feel like it does take time for some people to accept themselves just because of all the representation that they see on social media, on TV, and advertisements. And it subconsciously affects you, and it really does, because you would start to think that this is really the perception of beauty. You want to be like that because obviously you want to be called pretty also. So you're like, yes. And then after a while, but you realize that, you are you and you should embrace yourself. Colorism is painful.
When I did modeling, I realized I went for so many castings and I just wouldn't get chosen, I realized that, if you are brown, it's very hard for you to get casted. If you guys if you don't believe me, right, the next time you walk into a shopping mall, just look at all the advertisements that you see and see how many brown or dark-skinned people you have represented in the posters around you. I wouldn't even know where to start with in terms of trying to solve this. For me personally, as a photographer, I try to cast people. I actually try to go out my way to find all kinds of minorities to shoot with, and I like to shoot with people who have darker skin. And even then, it's hard to find the models sometimes, because a lot of times if you have dark skin, you just might be turned off from even trying to model or to do anything that would require casting and stuff like that. So it's almost as though the door for beauty is closed for you in your mind because of just all the negative experiences that you get. You need to have quite thick skin to just go screw this, I'm just gonna do this. I think colorism is a very multi-faceted issue, especially here in Singapore. And I guess one way forward is really to just try to diversify your casting and your representation. Because the moment people see that, you know, like darker skinned people could be featured in like, you know, videos, photos and things like that, it would help reframe the imaginations of like people around them. But it will still take like, I think, many years before real change can happen. Yeah. Colorism is archaic and shouldn't exist.
I really had enough of colorism. The color of my skin was always mentioned somehow because I had dark skin. And I think when you are made so aware of something that you're born with, I started looking out for colorism as often as I started being on the receiving end of it. So I would walk into a mall and I would see all these billboards and all these posters, and all I saw were light-skinned women and men. When I got pregnant with my son, there was a lot of that, you know, the tau hui in the market, and yeah, people, aunties and stuff would be like, oh, you're pregnant, you know, you must take a lot of tau hui, so your baby will be fair. Before, I would see them as the villains and the enemy and the perpetrators. But now I genuinely do feel that, you know, they're just ignorant. When you do that, when you decide that light skin and fair skin equates, you know, to beauty or the definition of beautiful or the epitome of, you know, beauty, that's basically you saying that light skin is more beautiful. So it's also saying that if I'm in a room and everyone is, you know, a shade or two lighter than me, I am the least attractive person in the room. And to that, I say, not true. Let's all stop buying into colorism. Let the colorism bank go broke. That's what we need to do. Colorism is unnecessary.
I actually did not know of the word colorism until my mom made the film herself, actually. So I couldn't really relate to it. Like, it didn't resonate with me. My boss actually told me, and this made me feel a little bit uncomfortable. It's like, oh, Cassius, you look so much fairer today. It's so nice, so really handsome. I had this friend that was really, really dark skinned. He got so much remarks like being dirty, like, they won't call him dirty, like straight up. They get creative with it. You know what I mean? Like calling it like charcoal. Like, it's so ignorant. You need to adopt understanding. The understanding of the individual, you know? Because a lack of understanding is what causes anger and fear, and therefore causes segregation, gaps in the community. That is what I think everybody needs to adopt. Understanding, not of the skin, but of the person, of the human being. Colorism is war.
So, you know, when I was in the primary school, I really realized that people are looking at colors. For example, every day when I go to school, there was this auntie who is from a different ethnic group. She would be feeding her grandchild, and the grandchild wouldn't want to eat. So she will just point to me and say that the black devil is coming. Quickly, come and eat. And this child will run to her, and then the child will just eat happily and keep looking at me as if she's so frightened of me. Since I've been conducting cooking classes, I had various kind of students from different race, different ethnic groups coming. And there was a time when frequently, I had this student from another ethnic group. She used to come and attend all my classes. But then there was a point when for 2 classes, she did not pay up the fees. And so I called her those days we don't have online and all that, so she's supposed to give me in cash or in check. So I called her and said, the last 2 classes you have not paid. And then that day is such a memorable day because she said, you think I enjoy going to your class? Every time you use your hand, I feel so eerie because your hands are black, and then when you handle the rice and you cook the rice, when I go home, I throw up. I eat in front of you. When I go home and think about your hand cooking the food, I go home and I throw up. She said that, and I was so shocked. My whole body shook. My heart was beating fast, and I just hang up the phone. And I stayed the whole afternoon waiting for my husband to tell him what happened, because I didn't know how to react to this remark. I've never heard it. But the thing is, that evening, when I wanted to cook something for the family and I used my hand, I keep thinking of the remark, and it just break into tears. Colorism is there forever.
The first time being a teenager, I had a fashion shoot that was happening, and I was modeling for the first time. I wanted to get a little bit of makeup because I hadn't used much makeup at that point. Went into the shops, the cosmetic stores, and saw that there were no colors that actually matched my skin tone. They were all very fair or much lighter and gave me a very whitewashed effect. That's when I realized that possibly that I am a color or a shade of skin tone that wasn't really the best accepted in India. You always see every day in the newspaper these matrimonial ads, and it would always read fair, beautiful girl and the rest of the description. It was a discrimination straight away, is what I thought. All these years, people have been telling me I'm not fair. That I think it's just the society and the upbringing that puts these inhibitions and notions in our head. Colorism is a perception in our head.
When I was young, obviously look at my color. I was called black. My mother was called Blackie as well. And the girls in class, they got picked on, and I never knew, and I never realized why they were getting picked on back then because I was so young. Fast forward years later, then I realized that, hang on, there was something similar among all of them because they were all darker in skin tone. Also, as I was growing up, I remember, and it even happens now when I'm walking in a department store and I pass beauty counters, they're always approaching me and asking me, would you like some skin lightening, skin whitening creams, would you like fairer skin, that sort of thing. As I got older, then I realized that something was wrong with it, and nothing was wrong with me. Now, as I got even older and more mature and more comfortable with myself, then I think the anger was still there, the displeasure about the whole thing. But I think I was a different animal already. By then, I said, I'm not taking this. I'm going to say something. I'm going to stand up for myself, and I'm going to stand up for those around me. It is not acceptable. Colorism is uncultured.
I was first aware of colorism around the 90s. I was going out with my mom and with my aunts and my cousins, and we would all just go to the beach and try to get as brown as we possibly can because, I don't know, we were told that if you're darker, then you look slimmer. And if you're darker, you're healthier. And if you're darker, then the imperfections of your veiny white skin won't show. Because when I came to Singapore, I was the fair one. Not as in fair, because that's what I originally thought, like just and fair. People didn't really compliment me. They were actually talking about my skin. So it was hard to kind of get accustomed to this free kind of compliment that people would keep paying you, but you wouldn't perceive it as a compliment because it's something so unusual to say. But there might be some people who, because they were brought up in this mentality that fair is nicer, they think that they're paying you a compliment when they say, oh, you're so fair, especially when you go for some family gatherings. And I never think that it's their fault because they genuinely think they're being nice to you and telling you things that are obvious. I mean, yes, I'm Caucasian, I am fairer skinned compared to someone else, but it's just something that it's reality. You don't have to make more out of it than it is. So Probably if you have one of those aunties or an uncle who is very hung up on the idea of skin color and the compliments come in that kind of shade and nuance, then maybe not encouraging it and not just accepting that polite compliment and being polite back, but saying, actually, I don't think it's okay to say that. Colorism is unhealthy.
If you talk about colorism, I think being in the industry of, in the entertainment industry, one gripe that I always find annoying when I look up for opportunities or jobs is Pan-Asians. Now, so I got nothing but love for everybody, but it really gets to me that opportunities are not presented to me. I asked an ex-girlfriend of mine who works in advertising, why is it that they're always asking for or looking for Pan-Asians when they're doing this kind of things, right? And she told me the reason why they hire Pan-Asians is because lighter or fairer skinned people appeal more to the masses. And that really frustrates me. I look Thai, I look Filipino, obviously I blend into Malaysia and Indonesia, and I feel like I could be a more relatable face to the masses in Southeast Asia. Being brought up in Indonesia, a lot of the times I get a bit looked down, or people quickly disregard me for the color of my skin because my mother's very fair, but my father is actually very dark skin in color. So I've got a bit of a blend of the two, and my sisters are much fairer than me, well, except for one, but a whole lot of them are much fairer than me. So they were more celebrated, they were more looked on, doted on in comparison to myself and that one other sister who was of a darker skin color. Colorism is divisive.
When I went to army, not all there were a lot of gems that I saw there as well, but there were also some who started calling me orang minyak, so oily man. So in fact, during the secondary school, poly, that transitional period was where I realized that, okay, you know what, I think color is a big thing here. Even within my own community itself, the idea of black is something that's frowned upon. They say, Salim, I think you should consider Fair and Lovely. Like, Fair and Lovely is a girl's product, man. No. It's from dark, right? Now you're dark, right? Become a bit more whiter. I'm an accidental filmmaker. That's how I usually see myself. And there were some production companies that I worked with before. When I actually found certain talents were really good, I was immediately told, no, don't use them. But I'm intentionally trying to break that and intentionally bring a lot of opportunity to people who are not just fair skin, but beyond. I strongly feel or request is the basic respect one can actually give to another fellow human being, to say that you have skills, you have talents. I think I will take you for that, rather than saying that sorry, you can't get the part because you are black. Colorism is toxic.
The first time I was aware of colorism was as a little girl. My cousins would call my sister, they used to make jokes about her, and my parents even used to make jokes about her because she's darker skinned than I am. And so they would say things like, oh, we dropped you in the Black Sea. I realized, oh, I had fairer skin, she had darker skin, and apparently I had the advantage because I was fairer. As I got older, I remember going to my cousin's wedding. I was meeting this uncle who came to the wedding, and he hadn't seen me since I was quite young. And he looked at me, and I've been, doing a lot of exercising in the sun and running around, and I didn't really care about my color. And he said, oh, Shamini, you've lost your color. Oh my God, I was no longer fair skinned. So I went on to, get married. I married someone with a darker skin tone than I have. I remember when I was taking her in the park one day, as a baby, toddler, and this woman of another race
looked at my daughter and said, "Oh, your daughter is so pretty. What a shame her skin is so dark." And I was like, okay, we won't talk to this lady again. Don't need to know her. Colorism is ignorance.
There was an incident a couple years back with an ex-girlfriend of mine that we left my house. We were gonna go get lunch, and our neighbor's mom, I think, yeah, this lady, she was also out of the house. And we were just gonna wait for the lift, gonna go and get lunch, and then she saw me with my ex-girlfriend. And she has brown skin. The first thing she said was, "Wow, you got a new mate, ah?" Look, the conversation doesn't even have to go that way. It could be, "Oh, hi, who's this?" Very simple. Like the moment we were talking about colorism, like it was a moment that just shot through my head that people get judged so much by the color of their skin rather than what's on the inside. So, I'm Chinese. I'm not the fairest looking Chinese, but I'm not the darkest looking Chinese either. I spent a total of like 6 to 7 years working in Sentosa, out in the sun, every single day. I think usually it was with the older generation, I guess. They asked me, "Hey Sean, why are you so black? Why are you so dark? Why are you cao da?" It just boggles my mind the way people think. So for me as a Chinese person who was darker skin tone, it's fine. You're just darker skin. Not gonna kill you unless you get UV radiation problems. That's a different scenario altogether. Yeah, it's health. Colorism is perception.
In Singapore, being brown is kind of considered, I don't know what it's considered really, but like othering a little bit. Yeah, it took a while for me to like accept it, fully. To be like, yeah, you know what, I'm brown and like, so what, like it's great, just be yourself. And I went to university in Canada, and that was a real eye-opener for me because in Singapore, you're considered like second-rate beauty. I mean, you'd be beautiful, but you're brown, But in Canada, it was like, oh dang, you brown, like, oh, like, yeah, it was a very strange perspective shift. I was like, wow. I think it helped a lot for me to like see myself as this like beautiful thing, to have that validation from like other people, which, yeah, it's a bit difficult in Singapore, I guess. Yeah. Colorism is hurtful.
I have gotten comments like, "Wow, you're so pretty. Like, imagine if you were like lighter, a bit more orange, or a bit whiter, you would be so pretty." I think something I've experienced is not being able to get a lot of jobs and not being as like popular or as looked up to as the fairer girls. It just annoys me, honestly, because like I know I'm just as good as anyone else, and it just sucks that I don't get the same opportunities. I think in social media, colorism is very obvious because you don't really... There just aren't as many popular and famous dark girls as there are fairer girls, especially in Singapore. But there are still a lot of girls that have asked me about like making my skin whiter, or they just like give me tips on becoming lighter even if I've never asked. I've seen it make a lot of people insecure. It's something that confuses me. I think will confuse me for a very long time. I know when I was younger, I always wanted to be fair, and I didn't like my skin color at all. You really have to be confident. There's nothing someone can do that you can't do, so just do it lah. No one's opinion matters but your own. Colorism is useless.